Well, welcome back to my studio. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is something that I did over the holidays. I created a bunch of these for gifts. And of course, I did not make myself one. So I thought it would be fun to make myself one today and share with you how I made these. So we're going to be using all acrylic paint. I grab whatever I have, and I've got apparently a very limited palette when it comes to my craft paint. So I've been grabbing stuff, um, actual like artist paint. It doesn't matter. You can use whatever acrylic paint you have. Um, so you need acrylic paint in like some earthy colors if you're going to do like grass or moss. I've got some off white here, some yellow ochre, some light, medium, and dark values of green, some purple for the flowers, and then I've got some burnt sienna for probably the walls that I'm gonna use that for. So I also have a paper plate. I've already squirted some paint out on here, and I've penciled in my doorway. And I love doing an arch doorway. It's very fairy house ish. So we're going to start by coating the entire pot except for the door. I think I might do that in a different color. I might do that in a light color this time. Um, but I know that I'm going to put rocks around the edge of the door, and I want the grout in between the rocks to be dark. So we're going to start off with a dark paint. And that is how you work with acrylic. You work from dark to light, with your highlights being the last thing that you put on, which is right the opposite of painting with watercolor. So let's go ahead and get this started. So I have what I like to call my junky brushes, and they're just really cheapy brushes that you can buy at any craft store. They usually come in a big pack, and they're inexpensive, which is what I like because I don't feel bad if I beat them up or if I forget to rinse them out. Um, but I like them too because some of them are really bristly and you can get really good textures from these kinds of brushes. So I'm going to find a brush that we can use to actually paint with and start getting some color mixed up. So I want this to be a little bit darker than the burnt sienna I've got on my palette. And so I think I'm going to mix just a little bit of green in here to get a darker brown, maybe a little bit of black. And if you're wondering why I added green, it's because it's the complement of red. And you always get some really nice neutral colors when you add two complements together. So I am just going to start by painting, and you can see that I've added a little window here um, in the back. You can do a circle, you can do rectangle, you can do whatever you want to do. So I'm just going to start by giving this a nice coat. Actually, I don't really need to paint the top. I think I'm going to do that in a dark green later. So I'll skip that for now. I might add a little bit of water to this to get this paint moving. And what I like so much about making these little fairy pots is that they're super small. I think this is probably a 4-inch pot, height wise. Because they're super small, they really don't take that much time to do. But it would be really cool if you made like a whole village with uh, a variety of sizes. That would be really cute. Actually, I think I'm gonna paint right over this door because it's too hard to go around it, and I know I'm gonna be adding lighter wood on top, so I do need a darker color under there. So I'm just gonna paint right over it, and then I'm gonna pencil it right back in, maybe with a white pencil when it dries. So same thing with this door or this window. And if I sound a little weird today, it's I'm getting over the flu, so but I feel well enough to do this. So and this always makes me feel better too, being able to paint. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry for a second. Okay, I used my heat gun to dry this, and you can see how sloppy I painted this on here, and that's fine. It's a base coat, and it's really not a big deal. So I am gonna find my door where I want my door, and I made some little marks here on the top so that I have center, so I can make my door on one side, and then the center on the flip side. I'll put the window. So we want an arch doorway, and we can really, make a pronounced kind of an arch by making the bottom kind of tip in a little bit. So these are like almost like little hobbit houses, right? They're really fun to paint too, and you can get super creative with how you lay these out. So I'm going to pencil in. I'm also going to pencil in some stones. And the nice thing about when you create the stones is that I've already got the grout in between the rocks laid down, so I don't have to worry about any of that. And I just try to make these kind of random in shape. And I usually end up deviating from what I've drawn on here anyway. So it was just kind of give myself a little bit of a map. And they look pretty uniform right now, but as soon as I hit this with the paintbrush, it's going to get a lot more varied looking because they're rocks and they're not all perfectly round. So something like that. And then I'm going to put in, I might put in some of the wood for the door, just kind of mark it out so that I know how wide I want these planks on the door. And I'm going to keep them pretty wide. It's easier to paint. And then I need a doorknob. So, and if you want to put a little window in your door, you can definitely do that. I'm debating whether I should do that or not. Let's see. And then I want to flip it around and I'm going to pencil in my window. And I think I'm going to do a rectangle for the window. You can do circles or ovals, whatever you want to do. I'll just get this in here like that. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint over this brown with a mixture of this cream color and some of this burnt sienna. And I told you that I'm notorious for making a mess. So all right, I'm going to grab a smaller brush And this one's pretty beat up. Okay. So I'm going to mix a little bit of this with the burnt sienna. And I'm trying to get, uh, when I paint this, I want this like really nice kind of textural look. So I'm going to be kind of sloppy with my brush strokes. And I'm debating whether I should put rocks. I'm not going to put rocks around that window, I don't think. So, so I can go right up to the edge of this window. And I know that this top right here is going to be like moss, going to be green. So I'm not going to worry about that right now either. Um, but the idea with adding in this part right here is I don't want to get rid of all of the dark. So um, I'm just being kind of splotchy about it. And these go really quick, like I said, because they're so small, which is nice. Now I'm going to go back over with this cream color. And this is a fun project to do, especially in the winter time, because um, it just reminds me of spring, and which is right around the corner here. But we still have snow on the ground, so like I said, this is always fun to do. Something spring-like. And I know you're probably thinking, well, this looks like a hot mess, but it will come together. So, all right, before I get too far with that, I'm going to go ahead and start painting in some of these rocks. And so we need a gray, and we're just obviously going to mix together some black and white. And I'm going to start off with a dark value of black, and then we can always do a medium value, and then we'll do the lightest value on top of that. So I've got two values, and I'm going to grab a smaller brush. Let's see what I got here. And so I'm going to try to get these rocks close enough to each other, but far enough away that you can still see the brown that's in between them. Okay, while that's drying, I'm gonna go back in with some of this, some of the light color on the wall. And just trying to, get this as close to these rocks without covering them up. And I'm not worried about this edge on the bottom of the window because I'm going to add in a flower box. So I can leave that pretty unfinished. But vary your brush strokes, sideways and down. And I think that gives it a better kind of a look. And before I go too far with the rocks, I want to get the door in also. And yeah, I'm not sure about the window yet. So, but I do know I'm going to go in here with a lighter color. So I'm going to mix up some of this again, some of this darker brown. And I'm just trying to mix up a color that I actually like. And I'm not so crazy about that. That got away from me a little bit. And if you've got like some paper around, you can always paint some test swatches um, to see if you like the color. And I don't really like that color. So let's do that again. Well, let's see. I think that's pretty much, yeah, it's a little bit better. Okay. So I am very carefully going to add in these wooden planks for the door. And I'm just using a downward brush stroke, and I'm going to try and leave some space in between the plank and the stones, and then a space between the next plank so that it looks like um you know the line between the planks basically. And I think I'm just going to ignore that window for now and then concentrate on this door. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. And the last thing that we'll do for the door is just go over this really quickly with a light color to act as the highlight. So I'm just going to add a little bit more of the cream colored paint to what I just used. And I'm going to go over this. And if you see any of your white lines, don't worry about that because we'll scrub those out at the end. And this is almost like a dry brush kind of technique. I have a little bit of paint on my brush, not a lot, and not a lot of water, but it gives a really nice, like a textural feel. And you can go straight back into this cream color, and I'm gonna get rid of most of it on my brush by wiping it off on the paper towel. And I'm very lightly gonna go over some of these areas. I don't want to overdo it. Okay, that's good, I think. I've got a little bit of a gap here. I'm gonna fill in. Okay, now we can go and add another value to our rocks. And hopefully this hasn't dried out. And you can change the temperature of your rocks too. So if you want to add in a little bit of brown, that would be nice too. And it's kind of the same thing as the door. I don't want to have a lot of water on my brush. I'm just gonna lightly tap and kind of scumble on top of these stones, because what I'm trying to do is create um, some some texture. And and you're trying to make these look three-dimensional as well. And if you keep in mind, maybe the bottom of the rock is in shadow, you can focus most of your light colors towards the top. But I'm not really painting per se. I'm just using this paint that's on my brush to kind of, like I said, just scumble around. And I think my paint dried out. So there we go. And the nice thing is that this pot already has texture to it, so it's helpful when you're dragging your brush across. It kind of picks up that texture, and it makes your job a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more white to my pile here, wipe it off, and then I can go back in to certain areas on the rock and just pop in this last light color. Okay, so that's something like that. And it just gives it a real three-dimensional kind of a feel. I'm going to go back in with a little bit of this cream colored paint and fix some of these areas that were forgotten. And I'm going to try to do that carefully. And we can add our doorknob in. to the door. Okay. So I'm going to add the doorknob in black. And I've got too much water on my brush. Okay. I'm just going to blot that up. And you can grab a little bit of that gray that you used for the rocks if it hasn't dried out, and mine has. It's super, super dry in my studio. I do have a humidifier, but when it's running, it doesn't make for a good recording. So um, we just deal with it, right? So I'm going to grab a little bit of that um, gray, and I'm just going to add a little bit of this to the doorknob on kind of one side, something like that. And then I'm going to grab white and I'm going to put the highlight in. And I have a feeling I've got too much water on there. Okay. Sometimes my brushes do not want to play. Great thing about acrylic is if you mess up, then you can just paint right over it. Okay. I think that's gonna do. There we go. Just something like that. So now that we have our door in and we're pretty good with our walls, I'm gonna start on this window back here. And because it's a window, I think I'm gonna go ahead and paint the inside of the window. I'm gonna add some yellow, like, the inside of the house is glowing kind of thing. If I can get my paint out. All right, so I'm gonna add some of this yellow. And I'm gonna mix this burnt sienna, or this is red oxide, I think. Just get these two kind of mixed together. But I want the outer edges to be darker, and then the center of the window to be more yellow. And you can mix these pretty well on the pot if they're wet. I mean, if you're quick. So, so I'm going to go back in with some dark brown, mix these two together. Put my glasses back on. I'm going to add just a little bit of black to this. Okay. And I'm very carefully going to add like a window frame. And I need a different brush. If you have the right brush, it makes all the difference in the world. And I always try to find a brush with the same shape of whatever it is that I happen to be painting. So if I'm painting something that's a rectangle, it's a little bit easier to use a flat brush, something, something like this. So in one swipe, I can make, a really nice frame for this window. So I'm going to leave that alone and I'm going to move on to some green. So I'm going to grab my brush and some of this dark green, which is already starting to dry out. And I'm going to paint this rim up here, this dark green. Okay, so while we have this dark green out, and if you want to paint this rim, you can. If you don't want to, no worries, because when you put a plant in here, you're not going to see it anyway. So while we have this green out, I'm also going to do the bottom, and I'm going to use my brush kind of in a like a stippling motion to create some bushes and some grass. And feel free to cover up some of your rocks. It helps kind of push them back into the background. And you still want to be able to see a little bit of the flower box. So once that's on there, we can start with like a medium value green. And I've got plenty of greens over here to pick from. So I'm going to use this Hauser light green. And I've also got alfalfa. I think I'm going to go with this alfalfa. Let me see what else I got here. I don't know. Let's see what this one looks like. So I'm going to do the same kind of a thing that I did down here on the bushes, but I'm going to do this up here. And the key, like I said before, is don't cover up all of the dark green that you just did. And just kind of skip around here. Okay, I might use this other green and some of that, the one we just used. So we're trying to create, the light areas on the bushes. So I have this third green color, and I think it looks really chalky. And for my highlight, I don't think I want to use anything that is that chalky. I want it to be warm. So I am going to use this, and let's see, we're going to add a little bit of white to get our highlight color. And we're just going to repeat the process on all of the greenery. If you lose a little bit of your dark, you can just go right back in with some dark acrylic and kind of break up some of these shapes. And I wanted this to kind of have like a mossy feel to it. And I think it looks okay. I need to add a little bit of dark up here. And you can go back and forth as many times as you need to. So there's really no right or wrong to this. Just whatever you think looks good. And I'm going to use the light uh, highlight color. in these bushes down here and in the flower box. So I had way too much paint on my brush. And you see what happened. Got a big blob. So we'll just go back in with some of the dark acrylic green here and try to get rid of this blobby mess here. Okay. And I want the greenery underneath to stay dark. So I just switched to a little bit of a smaller brush. That seems to be helping. Okay. So I'm going to go back in with this like mid value. Okay. Now I'm going to switch back to that light highlight color and finish the bushes on the bottom. And if you wanted to, you could put some moss on the rocks too. Totally up to you. There's all sorts of things that you could do with this. Okay. So the best part, in my opinion, is adding in the flowers at the end here. And I'm going to start off with this darker purple. And I just need to decide what kind of shape I want to do for my flowers here. And you can do a couple of different flowers, which I might do. But I'm going to start off with a dark color and I'll start in the window box here. And I'm just creating like a little C shape. I don't know what these flowers are, but okay. So maybe we'll add a different flower at the bottom. but I've got this um, lavender color here. And you can obviously just mix white into this if you want to get your highlight color. I'm going to try this little bit of a different uh, lighter purple and just add a little dot to these because we're getting super tiny now. And, we're not going to get detail is not the name of the game here. We're just trying to add some little impressions of flowers. That's all. But I think I want to add maybe some maybe we can do some red flowers. And I have a dark red. This is an alizarin crimson. And maybe this time we'll just dab in um, some flower shapes. I don't know. Let's see what we can get here. So I'm going to add in these little red flowers in here just randomly. Like I said, we don't know what these are. Okay. And I think instead of adding white to that, I'm going to grab this other red that I have, and it's a lot warmer and a little bit lighter. And I'm just going to go in and I'm not going to add the lighter color to every flower, maybe just the ones I want to stand out, but maybe leave some of them darker. Definitely the ones by the door I want to stand out. And I don't know how, see, I've got a couple of different reds here. Actually, I think we're just going to add a little smidge of white. We'll pop that in. Some of these flowers here. Maybe something like that. Now, on a couple of the ones that I did prior to this, I added some little mushrooms by the door. I mean, you could, like I said, you can do all sorts of things with this. So up here in the top, I think I want to add in, um, maybe we'll do some of these red flowers up here as well. But I think I'm going to use a little bit bigger of a brush for that. And I'll start with the dark red again. And I just switched back to the brush I was just using, so and I'm trying to do this as randomly as I can. You don't want it to look um uniform. I actually think that I'm going to change my mind, which is which is fine. So when stuff like this happens, you start doing something and you're like, "Wait a minute, I don't like that at all." It's not too late to fix it. We're just going to throw some more green on top of this, and I'm going to use the dark green, which means that I will probably have to go back with the other um, values of green. I may as well cover up the rest of this. Okay, so we'll just wait for this to dry for a second, and we'll get our other values of green. We'll do the same process. And then I think I'm going to do a different kind of a flower. I think I'm going to do, maybe I'll do pink, maybe pink and purple. I don't know. We'll see. So I'm going to give this a minute to dry. I'm just adding a little bit of green, um, kind of to the tops of these to kind of push them back up, like underneath the greenery, if that makes any sense. So, or something like that. Okay, I think that's pretty much done. And I could like literally fuss with this for a while. Um, Other things you can do, I did in one of the other ones that I painted. I just added like a little, um, I added like a little shadow under here, underneath the flower box. But yeah, you can do all sorts of things. With this. You can get creative. Definitely go online and check out some inspiration for little fairy houses and fairy doors. Especially, you can add butterflies, little animals on here, anything that you want. So I hope you enjoyed this. Something else I did want to say is that you can varnish this if you'd like as well. So they make a matte satin gloss varnish. Um, And I think I have some, but I did not varnish the ones that I gave as gifts. Acrylic seems to hold up pretty good, and these are little pots. I don't think they're going to get you know, handled that often. So it's totally up to you if you want to seal this. I felt pretty good about not sealing mine, so I didn't. But I hope you had fun and maybe you're inspired to try a couple of these on your own. All right. Thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.